Hi there. I know it's been a while since my last post. I'm still getting settled here in Antigua. I'm going to read to you today, though, a blog post from the 26th of October, 2023, titled A Freedom That Only Trees Can Know. The title of this post is an excerpted line from an entry Jiddu Krishnamurti made into one of just a few journal, personal writings, recordings that he did. With the exception of those few personal writings, all of the books credited to him are transcripts of the dialogues he engaged in over his decades of service to the planet and all herein. What is freedom? Are you free? I get an odd, eerie feeling when I ask myself if I am free, as the very asking of the question implies I am not. To know the feeling of freedom means I must know constraint. In asking the question, I have within me a feeling of constraint. In the reference journal entry, as he often does, Jiddu reflects on the nature of silence and sound, and it occurs to me that the only freedom that can be is the freedom of deep-rooted silence and deep-rooted sound. That unlike my uneasy conflict with freedom and constraint, deep silence and sound are not opposites, but are bound and unified. I recently purchased a book which compiles other journal entries of his, titled The Beauty of Life, and I offer you two passages, one from each text. The first, open quote, "By midday its shadow had deepened, and you can sit there protected from the sun, never feeling lonely, with the tree as your companion. As you sit there, there is a relationship of deep, abiding security and a freedom that only trees can know. If you establish a relationship with it, then you have relationship with mankind. You are responsible then for that tree and for the trees of the world. But if you have no relationship with the living things on this earth, you may lose whatever relationship you have with humanity, with human beings. We never look deeply into the quality of a tree. We never really touch it, feel its solidity, its rough bark, and hear the sound that is part of the tree. Not the sound of wind through the leaves, not the breeze of a morning that flutters the leaves, but its own sound, the sound of the trunk and the silent sound of the roots. You must be extraordinarily sensitive to hear the sound. This sound is not the noise of the world, not the noise of the chattering of the mind, not the vulgarity of human quarrels and human warfare, but sound as part of the universe." End quote. Jiddu Krishnamurti, from Krishnamurti to himself, the last journal. The second quote, open quote, "The sky was that astonishing blue that only the mountains have. You looked at it through leaves and the straight pines. There was no one to talk to, and there was no chattering of the mind. A magpie, white and black, flew by, disappearing into the woods. The path led away from the noisy stream, and the silence was absolute. It wasn't the silence after the noise. It wasn't the silence that comes with the setting of the sun, nor that silence when the mind dies down. It wasn't the silence of museums and churches, but something totally unrelated to time and space. It wasn't the silence that the mind makes for itself. The sun was hot and the shadows were pleasant." From The Beauty of Life, Jiddu Krishnamurti's journal. The last paragraph of the journal entry referenced above reads, open quote, Ever since he was a boy, it had been like that. No thought entered his mind. He was watching and listening and nothing else. Thought, with its associations, never arose. There was no image making. One day he was aware of how extraordinary it was. He often attempted to think, but no thought would come. On these walks, with people or without them, any movement of thought was absent. This is to be alone. And that's a quote from Life is Beautiful, Krishnamurti's journal. When I first read the word alone, the usual associations came, and then I thought, Jiddu would not mean what my conditioned mind interprets. I recalled him giving the etymology of the word in a dialogue. The short excerpt of this dialogue, held in Brockwood Park, England, is titled, In Aloneness, You Can Be Completely Secure. He asks, open quote, do human beings not radically transform themselves because they are really frightened not to belong to a group, to something definite? Are they afraid to stand completely alone? To be alone implies not to carry the burden of tradition with you, tradition being knowledge. To be alone implies total freedom. Alone is all one, when there is no fragmentation. That is total order. Can we step out of the stream of this utter confusion, disorder, sorrow, hope, travail, and despair? When the movement of thought comes to an end, there is total action. When you are faced with fact, there is no fear. End quote, Jiddu Krishnamurti. To be without conditioned knowledge, to experience without distillation and the interpretation of the conditioned mind, to be in communion with life, to be at peace, in rooted silence and sound. I was compelled to go to the sea yesterday afternoon. Well, what actually happened was my hands dressed me in my swimsuit and collected my beach things, and my feet walked me there. I had no say. I was floating, suspended in the waters of the earth, the womb, the primordial seas. The waters engulfed me, and I could not feel myself apart from them. We are. I had a moment which my mind sought to hold on to, but all it could capture in its suspension was the image of the trees on the shore, the patterns of the sky. It was frozen in the exquisite beauty and in pure wonderment. How did I come to be here, in this place? Head above the water, and a crashing of waves became the frozen sound of my suspension, and head below the waters, my breath was a pulsing rhythm, and the world, and the universe, and all the sand, and all the water, and stars, and nothingness rushed in, pushed in, and shut itself inside of me, drowned, suspended, as in these waters that are the human condition, as in the womb of my mother. It is her birthday today, as she was in the womb of her mother. No senses, only the deep-rooted silence and sound of our being. Before thought comes, before the fragmentation and separateness, they say we come into this world alone, and alone we will go out of it. To be alone is to be connected to everything, is to be in deep-rooted silence and sound, is to be free. Wishing you freedom and aloneness and connection with everything. Thank you for coming. Gift my books. You can read the full blog entry of this on my website. I'm posting the link in the description of my video. Take care.